video is aimed at all volunteers who work with either children or young people at Open Door Church. Hopefully it will give you some basic safeguarding training that everybody needs to be aware of. We are going to cover the church's safeguarding policy, the key personnel, DBS checks, some general guidelines of conduct, the different types of child abuse, and how to deal with the disclosure. Open Door Church has a safeguarding policy, which is reviewed each year. It details the church's commitment towards child protection and also outlines the responsibilities of both children's workers and of the church leadership in supporting them in their roles. A copy is held by the church office and also by each team leader. Currently, the team leader for Tiddlywinks is Tracy. For Sunday Morning Youth, it's Ruth. And for the One Mission Youth Club, it's Ellie. I, Hannah, am the safeguarding trustee. I'm responsible for developing and implementing good policies and for organising the DBS checks. Corinne is the church's child protection officer. It's her role to respond to any safeguarding incidents or concerns that are raised. It is the church's policy to DBS check all volunteers who work with under 18s on a regular or semi-regular basis. Whether considered leaders or helpers, it's important for everyone on a rota to have these checks in place. It is okay for someone to help out as a one-off, or for an example, a parent to stay with their child, but no one must ever be left alone, unsupervised with children, unless they've got a DBS certificate through the church. There are guidelines available in the safeguarding policy. Giving advice on the appropriate behaviour in your role as a children's worker, including the language to use, physical contact, how to pray with children, how to discipline the group. One rule you should always stick to, if at all possible, is not to be alone with a child on a one-to-one basis. The most common query leaders have concerning this is how to take small children to the toilet without being alone with them or invading their privacy. It's unavoidable that young kids of Tiddlywinks' age might need assistance, and it is okay to take them to the toilet. I'd recommend taking 2 or 3 children at the same time if they need to go, to avoid the one-on-one situation. Don't ever shut yourself in a cubicle with a child, and encourage them to be as independent as possible. For slightly older kids, instead of going into the toilet, you could stand in the doorway. In this way, you are available if the child needs help, but remain visible to other adults. Teenagers can probably go to the toilet without assistance. In your roles and relationships with children and young people, it's important to be alert to the possible signs of child abuse. Details of these can be found in the safeguarding policy, but here is a summary. UK law recognises 4 different types of abuse. These are physical, sexual, emotional, and neglect. Physical abuse is defined as any physical harm done to a child, such as by hitting, shaking, or burning. Signs to look out for are an increased number of injuries, such as bruises or fractures. The child may have injuries that don't seem to fit the explanation they've given for them. They may also try to hide these injuries by being unwilling to get changed or reveal areas of skin. Sexual abuse is defined as forcing children into any level of inappropriate sexual activity, which could involve different levels of physical contact or violence. It also includes involving children in pornography or grooming them for future abuse. Signs to look out for are sexual knowledge or behaviour that is age inappropriate. Children may act provocatively towards adults. In some cases, sexual abuse can lead to eating disorders. Emotional abuse is defined as any ongoing maltreatment of children that can lead to severe emotional harm. It may involve bullying a child, or making fun of them, or always silencing them so they're not allowed an opinion. It may be limiting their normal behaviour or social interaction, or creating an environment in which the child constantly feels frightened or anxious. Signs can include a change in mood, such as becoming more withdrawn, depressed, anxious, having strange obsessions or phobias. They may display more attention-seeking behaviour, or their performance and focus in activities may seem to take a backward step. Neglect is defined as a failure to meet the basic physical and psychological needs of a child which they need in order to develop. The signs are often the easiest to spot. Being constantly hungry and malnourished and becoming obsessive over food. A clear lack of personal hygiene. And they might have illnesses that seem to go untreated. I don't want you to be paranoid. Not every bruise or child in a bad mood is a sign of abuse. But at the same time, it's essential not to just ignore the signs. Please feel free to discuss any concerns you have over a child's welfare with Corinne, our Child Protection Officer, and she will advise and make the decisions on whether further action is necessary. As children's and youth leaders, you must be prepared if the child chooses to disclose an incident of abuse to you. Although this event is unlikely to happen, and I hope it never will, if you don't know what to do in the moment, it's too late. Firstly, there's several things you must not do. Don't act shocked, no matter what you are being told. Don't show disbelief, even if you are sceptical as to the truth of what you're hearing. Take it at face value and it can be investigated. Don't ask questions. Even "then what happened?" could encourage the child to invent more content. You can ask, "Did you say?" if you need clarification that you heard correctly. Don't promise to keep anything a secret. This is a lie, as you will need to pass the information on to the Child Protection Officer. Also, this is often a line used by abusers, which we should dissociate from. Instead, listen carefully to what the child says, without interrupting. Be supportive and reassuring. Explain what you will now do with this information. Immediately after this conversation, your first priority is to write down what was said. There is a specific form available for this, which can be found in Appendix 5 of the Safeguarding Policy. But if this is not readily available, any piece of paper will do. The sooner you make a record, the more accurate it will be. When he told me what had happened, he could barely look me in the eye. I felt he was still holding something back, the way his eyes darted about the room, the hesitation in his voice. A ray of sunlight fell across his face, illuminating the sorrow that now clung to his young features. I was suddenly transported back to a memory long forgotten, when I too had... No. Just write down exactly what was said. in the child's own words if you can remember them. Leave out conjecture, emotions, impressions. The final action you must take is to inform Corinne, the Child Protection Officer. If Corinne is not available, Adrian Newman is our Deputy Child Protection Officer. The nature of the disclosure will determine how urgent it is, but the general rule is don't delay in informing the relevant person. Do not discuss the issue with anyone else, including parents or other team leaders. In conclusion, I'd like you to ask yourself a few questions. Do you know where you can access a copy of the church's safeguarding policy? Who would you talk to if you had a concern about a child? Do you know who in your team that you might be working with has a DBS check? And importantly, who does not? Can you name the different types of child abuse? If a child did choose to disclose something to you, do you feel prepared to deal with that situation? I would like for all volunteers to be confident in answering these questions, which will ensure good practice in the work we do with young people. Open Door Church is committed to good safeguarding, but you can read more about that for yourselves in our safeguarding policy.